Hello everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us for this live presentation. Today's topic will be Office 365 Analytics, Alerts, and Licensing Reporting with Syskit Point. My name is Ivan and I'm a sales manager here at Syskit. And here with me, we have my colleague Matija, who will be showing you a demo in just a minute. Many of you already know us as a company, but for those of you who don't, let me introduce you to Syskit. Syskit is a software development company that was founded more than 10 years ago. We are developing products for Office 365 governance, as well as administration and monitoring solutions for SharePoint on-prem. We currently have more than 3,000 customers in over 75 countries worldwide, and some of them are very well-known famous names, as you can see on our slide. We currently have 5 products, including our award-winning SP-Docket for on-prem documentation, and of course Syskit Point for Office 365 governance and security. Now, before we start, just a few housekeeping rules. All registrants will receive a recording of the session within a few days. After Matija's presentation and Syskit Point demo, we will have a Q&A session where you can ask any questions you might have. Please feel free to use the Q&A function on the right of the screen to ask your questions throughout the session. Please don't be shy. I will now turn things over to Matija for the part you're all interested in. Matija, are you ready?
Yeah, thank you, Ivan. Just give me a second so I can share my screen. And you should be able to see it. Can you just confirm?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, excellent. So thank you all for coming. So today we are mostly going to talk about what's new in Syskit Point version 18. But first, for those of you who are new to Syskit Point, just a quick recap. So Syskit Point is a governance tool for Office 365. It will give you comprehensive reports on what is happening on your entire environment. And it will do so basically in one centralized location, a web application where you can basically see all the stuff you would usually have to see in different admin centers. Like it covers SharePoint, it covers Microsoft Teams, OneDrive, Office 365 groups, even Yammer. So besides that, Syskit Point is envisioned to fill the gap between the IT and the business owners. And it does so by giving you an option to automate some of the governance by giving different kind of tasks to your business owners. And those business owners are the people who have the operational knowledge about certain sites and who should have access to them and if they are even needed. So you can basically automate different things like group expiration or periodically validate memberships inside the group or even sharing of certain files. So let's get started. So the first new feature that we have is the alerts. So this is something that we introduced in the new version, and basically why we did it to explain some of the, let's say, ideas that we have. So IBM recently did a huge study on data breaches, and it actually showed that time from the actual breach that it happens to the time it's detected and that you actually remove the consequences, it's 280 days. And that's basically a long time, and anything can happen in that 280 days. You can lose a lot of data. So data breaches can basically lead to substantial financial losses, and even sometimes what's worse, it can damage the reputation of a company, and that can persist for a couple of years. So what IBM concluded that one of the best defense you can possibly do against data breaches is automating your security. And this is where basically alerts inside Syskit Point come in. They enable you to automate as much as security as you can. And what we covered, you see just some of the areas here. So we covered external collaboration, meaning when you have to collaborate with other people who are added as guest or external users on your sites, on your teams, or other resources that you have. You can be notified about group membership changes, especially if you have some sensitive groups where, let's say, the board has meetings or something. So you want to be aware of if somebody changes the owners or invites a new member. So you can see other stuff like changes in the team settings, group settings, site settings, like somebody changed the sharing capability or some other important setting for that. And that's just some of the important things. You can basically see all the file activities and all the sharing and user activities across the entire tenant. So if you ask yourself, why would you use Syskit Point alerts? Basically, they do not require any Office 365 complex administrative roles. As you know, something similar already exists in the Security Admin Center, but this feature is much more simpler, and it's intended and targeted at the people who actually have more knowledge about the data and what's happening. So Syskit Point alerts are basically allowing you to, let's say, delegate some of the responsibility to the business owners. And if something happens on a certain team or a certain site, you can notify easily those site owners or those teams owners, because they know if is it okay to share something with an external user on that site or not. IT probably doesn't know the answers to those questions. Other reasons to use the new alerts features is because they're really easy to use. They're all in one centralized place, and you have a lot of customizations by either specifying IP addresses or specifying, let's say, IP ranges or who performed the action. And what's also important, you can also say who is the target of an action. If you have an action which is like sharing access with somebody, so you can say only if the target is external out of your company, then trigger an alert. You will also have an option to get detailed email notifications which have all the necessary information, so you don't even have to open up Syskit Point to figure out what's going on. So, and the time is now for the first demo. So let's get started. So this is the home screen. Most of you who use the tool are familiar with this. So I always trade basically on the home screen. You'll notice that we have the new alerts feature. But I'm going to start on the side screen because I want to show you that we have two different ways of actually creating alerts. So what we have firstly is something that...
Mattia, I'm sorry, just to jump in, we cannot see your screen.
Oh, that's strange. Let me just check. Do you see it now?
Yep, now it's good.
Basically, I've just reshared the same screen, but that's interesting. Good to know. Thank you, Ivan.
No worries.
Okay, so we are now on the side screen, and this is basically a place where you see all your sites. And when it comes to the new alerts feature, what you have here is something that we call global alerts or tenant-wide alerts. So basically, those are the alerts you can configure for your entire tenant. And if I open it, you see different categories of alerts. So you see the categories I've previously mentioned. So you see something about external collaboration, sharing activities, site administration activities, which cover different stuff like changing site properties or deleting, renaming sites or creating new sites or even changing admins on those sites. And you also have Teams activities. So what's really useful here that all these alerts have specific configuration where you can make the most of them. So let's take a look at Share with Everyone. So most of you know that there's a special group called Everyone, and if you share a file with that, basically anyone inside your company, or in some cases even external users who you've invited to your company, can have access to that file, which can be potentially dangerous. So how easy it is to get an alert in that case? Basically, you just have to click on it and you have to enable it, and that's it. Other options that you have here is who should be notified once the alert is triggered, and you have additional options like I've mentioned before. So maybe you're only interested if this action was done by external users, so you want to filter by some IP ranges. And you also have the event type where you have even additional options. Maybe you're just worried about the everyone group, but you think it's okay if everyone except external users is used, which might be the case. So in this case, you could just save it like that. And basically, that's how easy it is to create global alerts. So the next thing that we have, I'm just gonna discard it, is something that we call contextual alerts. Basically, it allows you to go to any resources that you have. It could be a team, it could be a site, it could even be a single document. And once you're there, you can enable additional alerts which are focused only on that team. So you've noticed here that I actually moved to the QA team, which is a Microsoft team. And if I open alerts on that screen, you see that I have, once again, a list which is even more complete with different predefined alerts I can configure. Once again, maybe I'm interested in if somebody shared a file or folder externally on that team. And what's pretty cool, in contextual alerts, you have an option to send an alert to site owners or team owners, depending on which resource type it is. And you don't have to specify manually who those people are. It's going to happen automatically. So if you want to be notified somebody shared an external file externally within that team, you can do it easily. If you want to be notified, let's say somebody added a guest user to your team, it's easy. You can just go to the Microsoft Teams and Groups Changes category, added members event. You have to enable it, which it already is. You can say notify site owners, and basically you have an option. Do you want to just be notified if somebody added an owner or member? And what's really important, if you want to just filter the guests, you have to change this, show events performed on, and say the target should be external user, meaning those are the guests. And that's how easy it is to basically configure events, alerts for any of your resources. And you'll notice if I go deeper, if I go to a single document, let's just pick one single document. I can even configure alerts here. And here I have different activities because always we know where you are and which alerts make sense for that context. So in this context, maybe you are worried somebody is going to delete this file, or somebody might, or you just want to know each time somebody accesses a file. So you have a lot of possibilities here and activities you can check. Okay, so the next thing that I want to show you is also that on the user screen, you have additional tenant-wide alerts that you can be notified if somebody logged in. And this is a nice use case if you use the filters and specify IP ranges which might be outside of your country. So those might be considered maybe, let's say, sensitive logins, and you want to double check if everything is okay. Who is that person? Is he on a business trip or something? Other events that you can check is changes to the administration roles. So somebody gained a global admin role, somebody new became a Sharepoint admin. Those are the things that you might want to be notified about. Okay, so what we've covered so far is basically how do you configure alerts? So the next question would be, how do I view alerts when they are actually triggered? So if you enable the notifications, of course, you're gonna see it in an email. So this is the example. Somebody shared a file or folder, and you can see here actually that it was done by admin and it was shared with Adele. And somebody used a sharing link, shared it with specific people. Other ways you can do it, you have the bell icon here, and you can simply click on it, and you see all the alerts here. If you click here, you can simply view all the alerts in the past 7 days. And once you basically click on it, you have an option to view details. Here you can see all the details related to that alert. So who did it? So Eva did it, and what did she do? She shared bug reports folder with Adele. And if you need even more details on actually all the underlying actions in the event logs which cause this alert, you can actually go ahead and look at that and see all the necessary data to figure out what's going on. And once you're basically okay with that alert, you've checked out what's going on, you can mark it as resolved. So you will not see it when you come back to this screen. Basically, you've checked it, it's okay. Okay, so What you might be asking yourself is if you enable a lot of alerts across different sites, is there an easy way I can check all the alerts I have on my tenant? And the answer to that is, of course, yes. You can just click on the user icon and you can go to all the alerts, where basically you see everything that's been enabled alert-wise on your environment, and you have different options. The first one is to show the alerts basically grouped by alert type. So show me all the places where, with the access file alert, and you see that I have one site and one team. But if you want to look at it in a different way, then you can group it by scope and you can check and see the answer. Okay, I have an administration site. Give me all the alerts somebody enabled on that site. So this is pretty cool. And from there, if you see that basically you are receiving too many alerts because you have to, when it comes to alerts, you have to find the right balance. Too few, it's not good enough, but if you send too many alerts, then nobody is going to take them seriously. So here, if you figure out you've messed something up, it's easy to edit the alert or disable it. And basically that's it when it comes to alerts. So I'm going to switch back to the presentation. Hopefully you're going to see it and no more trouble with screen sharing. Okay, so the next new thing and the next, let's say, big thing is the license reports. So basically all of us use Office 365 and we have to pay for that. And what you want to definitely be sure that you get the most of what you're paying. So what these new license reports are going to show you is which license types do you have? How many of them are you paying for? How many of them are actually assigned? How many of them are not assigned, but you're still paying for them? And if you have assigned licenses, but nobody is using them because you have either inactive users or users which have sign-in blocked, which can happen if you don't have good onboarding procedures in your company, then basically you have licenses which nobody is using, but you cannot assign them to different people. And that might be definitely a possible saving for you if you remove those licenses. Other stuff that we cover is basically giving you a breakdown of how you are actually using the licenses. You can choose that by either breaking down the license cost by department or checking the license cost if you're a multinational company by different countries or different criteria. Okay, let's jump back to the demo. Okay, so to access the new license reports, you have to go to the reports and you can either search for them or you can filter by them using this filter. And you see that we have 4 new license reports. So the first one is the licenses overview. So this one will give you a quick but useful overview. So it will give you all the license types that you have in your company. It will tell you what's the unit cost and what's the total cost you're paying for that license. But it will also tell you, out of that total cost, did you assign all the licenses? Do you have any unassigned licenses? And as you can see, this is a small environment, so we have all the licenses assigned, but you also notice that we have some inactive licenses. So these are assigned, but they are assigned to inactive, blocked, or even soft-deleted users. And this gives me a possible savings, which in your company could be a lot bigger than this. And this is pretty cool because from here you can actually figure out, do you need to buy more licenses or should you maybe decrease the licenses number because you have a lot of unassigned licenses? If we go back to those licensing reports, the next one I want to show you is the license distribution. Basically, here you have a choice to break down the cost by different criteria, either by department or by country. For this example, I'm going to break it down by department. And if I run the report, once again, you can see different departments have different licenses and you can see the total cost per department, which can be useful if you have some internal billing procedures on how you actually split the total Office 365 cost. And this can be useful because in complex scenarios, different departments might be even using different licenses. So the cost, let's say, difference between them could be potentially huge. The next report that I wanted to show you is the actual one where I mentioned that you have inactive licenses. What it means that you have people, in this case, Diana and Jonathan, and you can see the user state. So Diana is inactive. She has not logged in a long time. And Jonathan actually has a disabled sign-in in Azure AD. So those people still have assigned licenses, which you cannot assign to other people because they are still tied to their account. So on this report, it's quite easy to select those people, select those licenses, and simply remove them. And the last report I wanted to show you is basically license usage by service. And here you have basically an overview which service is being used by which user. And this can help you in two ways. Either it can help you by figuring out what's the adoption of some of the services, because if you see let's say Microsoft Teams and nobody has been using it recently, then you basically have a problem with your organization adopting Microsoft Teams. But the other things that you can do here, you can actually choose to group it by user, and then you can check for a certain user like org, okay, what is actually org been using, and figure out what to do with that data. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. The next thing, and the next big thing, really big thing, is the analytics and adoption reporting that we have in version 18. So basically, we have three different components when it comes to analytics and usage inside Syskit Point. So the first one is basically the usage analytics. And this is going to tell you how your content is being used. So if you have some sites, pages, and documents, we can tell you which of them are popular and most used. This might be important, especially in these days when you publish, let's say, a new COVID news on your news portal in the company. You want to see who has actually read that news and are people even reading it. What you can also figure out in these ways, do we have inactive content? Do we have inactive teams which are not being used? Who are the most active users in your tenant? And what devices are they using? Are they using desktop or are they using mobile? So it can give you a lot of insights. And what's really cool about this is that the actual content owners, business people, can come in to Syskit Point and see the data. So if you have a, let's say, head of marketing, he can come in and check out how are people actually using marketing sites, and which can be really useful, and that's not something you can do easily out of the box. So the next thing when it comes to analytics is the Microsoft Team Analytics. So most of you know how big an impact Microsoft Teams had and how fast the adoption was when COVID started. So it's really hard to check the statistics inside Microsoft Teams. So what you can see inside Syskit Point is basically who are your, let's say, most active teams? Which channels are more active? How are your users using Teams? Are they chatting one-on-one or are they using channels inside Teams? How many meetings do we have and how are people using those meetings? Are they screen sharing? Are they using video during those meetings? A lot of useful information that we're going to show during the demo. And the last component is the adoption component. So if you're paying for Office 365, you've made an investment and you definitely want to see the return of that investment in Office 365. So what we can tell you is basically how are your users interacting with Office 365? What's the adoption? And what's pretty cool, we can actually tell you what's the adoption compared to different departments. So if you see that some department is not using, for instance, SharePoint, you can have targeted educational campaigns to educate those users and just those users how to use SharePoint to basically get a better return of investment in Office 365. Okay, so let's jump in to the demo. So the best place to start for the analytics is the dashboard. So the first thing when you come to the dashboard, you actually see the old dashboard, which was already here. So here you see the inventory of your sites. Do you have any new sites created? Do you have any inactive or orphaned resources, which is really useful? You also see information about users and external user collaboration. But what's new is at the top, you can choose new dashboards. One of them is Microsoft Teams. And if you go to the Microsoft Teams, you actually get a nice overview for the last 7 days, what's been going on Microsoft Teams. So you can check activity during the week. And as expected, during the weekend, there is no activity. You can also see your most used teams, your most used channels. And what's pretty cool, you can actually see the amount of messages being sent using Microsoft Teams. And what's pretty cool, you can distinguish between private messages, and those are the one-on-ones or using the chat, and the channel messages. So your organization might have a preference for people to use channel messages so that all the members of the teams are informed about certain changes in the department. Of course, all of this is drillable. All this data, you can just click view all, and it will show you a detailed report where you can see all the underlying data. But let's get back to the dashboard. Here you can also see statistics about your meetings. So are people using private meetings or channel meetings? Are they screen sharing? Are they using cameras during the meetings? How many people usually participate in the meetings, and what's the average duration, or what's the longest meeting, and other similar statistics. Okay, let's jump to the next dashboard, and that's the adoption part. So currently we cover SharePoint adoption and Teams adoption. Since this is a demo environment, you'll probably notice that I have unrealistic data here. It's almost never going to be 100% in a real environment. But you don't have to worry that some of the, let's say, different services are missing, because we're going to add definitely support for other services. And what's pretty cool that even now, for each of the service that we currently support, you can see how it's being adopted across different departments. So you see here that we have IT, sales, and marketing, and not all of them are using the applications in the same way. And this can definitely help you figure out, do you have some departments which are lacking and which require that you do additional adoption efforts with some targeted educational campaigns? And what's also pretty cool at the bottom, so since this is a new feature, we only have data for the current month, but as time goes on, you'll be able to see, do you have any progress in your adoption? Is the, let's say, global state getting better over time? Are your adoption efforts giving any results? And that's when it comes to the dashboard, but this is definitely not all when it comes to the new analytics features. The next thing that I want to show you is that you have under reports, the analytics filter. And here you see a couple of new reports. One of them is Sharepoint Activity. And this one is really cool because this is also available to your site owners, team owners. And here you can pretty much select your entire environment or just specific sites. And you can choose to run the report for a different date range period, whatever suits your need. And you'll see how people are interacting with content on that site. So you can either focus on users, so who are the most active users, how many of them do I even have on a daily basis. You can focus on sites, so how many active sites do you have, which are the most popular sites. You can choose to focus on pages on those sites, or you can choose to focus on documents. And of course, like before, you can just drill down and see all the specific data. So on this site, tell me all the documents by popularity which are being used. And what's pretty cool about this report is that you can actually select different sites. Let me just select QA and some other site. And if you choose to run it, you also have an option to compare data between different sites. So you can see which department is using that site and which is not. Okay, and we have a lot of new reports here. I'm just going to show you one which is pretty cool. It's the meeting interactions, basically where you can select a department, let's say marketing, and you can see how people are interacting inside marketing. So I see Deborah basically is not interacting with anyone except Bruce, which might be okay if she's doing some project on the side, but it also might be strange. And of course, you can drill down and view all the underlying data, who is actually interacting with who. So here we see John Lick is actually interacting with Diana, Cork, Diamond, and Bruce, and how many times, which might be useful to our business owners, which will come to this report. And this is something that we are going to add later. Currently, we support it for Sharepoint, but we're also adding support, and it's coming soon, that your business owners will be able to come here and view all the analytics data regarding teams. And what's pretty cool that inside Syskit Point, you will not have those 90 days limit in the analytics that you have inside the Teams application. So if you want to check adoption over a longer period of time, you'll definitely be able to do that. Okay, so let's get back to our sites screen. So the last thing regarding the analytics that I want to show you is basically if you select a site and go to that site details, what you had before, you saw the overview of it, or basically the security, how many users do we have, how many external users, the content and the permissions. But with the new analytics, if you scroll down, you also see the detailed analytics for that site. So basically you see the site activity, you see the users activity, and for each of those things, you see all the details. So right here, I can see who are the most active users on this site, on which days is the activity, and which actual client are they using. You can also see the most popular documents and pages. And all of this data, once again, is editable. You can click on that and basically see all the underlying data. And this is something you can see on sites, but of course, if you go to a team and select some team, this is also going to be available. Okay, this team has no data, but if it had, just let me go back to that same QA team, which I know has data on the demo environment, you'll be able to see once again, information about the activity of that. So basically you have a central place where you can see all the necessary and useful information about that team, from permissions, members, to activity on it. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. And the last thing that I want to talk about is actually customizing access reviews. So for those of you who actually have been using Syskit Point know that this is not a completely new feature. So we had it before, but we made it even better. So just a short reminder, basically we have something that we call permission reviews, where you can have business owners periodically review who has access on the content they own. And this can be SharePoint sites, even their OneDrive, or their groups, or their Microsoft Teams. It can be any resources. And basically, in this way, you can have a completely automated way where Syskit Point is asking them to periodically review access. And what you as an admin get is basically proof of the owner's accountability that they have secured their content. So how does this work in short? So you have the admins on the one side and you have the business owners. So admins have to initially set it up, and once they set it up, it will automatically trigger. And owners will get email notifications that they have to perform their review. And if they don't do it, they of course will get some reminders. And then they have to use Syskit Point to do the actual review, to remove all unwanted access and confirm everything is okay. And once they do it, the admins will be able to see all the changes that have been done and how many of your sites have been secured. And if somebody has not done basically the review, they will be able to send even additional reminders. Okay, so what's actually new in version 18? So what you had before is basically you had, let's say, one rule which applied to everything. So now we made it a lot more powerful. So based on the feedback that we got from you guys, so what you wanted is to have different frequencies. So maybe you have some sensitive sites or teams which should be reviewed more often than something that's not that sensitive. Also, you have the possibility to specify who should be the reviewer. And what's really cool, you have more options to choose what should be reviewed. So do you want to, let's say, use the simpler approach and you just want to review who's the member of that group or team? Or are you also interested in reviewing those individual file sharings when somebody shared a file? And you also have an option, okay, I just want to review if somebody shared something with external users. So a lot more options depending on your needs. And what's pretty cool that you can have multiple policies and you can have different policies on different teams, different groups, different sites, even one jobs, depending on how do you want to configure it. Maybe it's going to be by department, maybe for the legal you want to do, let's say, more often reviews, or maybe it's going to be that public teams have different rules or something like that. You can completely automate it and customize it the way you want. Okay, let's jump in to our last demo. Once again. So first, I'm logged in as an admin, Eva. So what you have to do is under permission reviews. If you have not set it up, you'll actually have a wizard here, but the steps I'm going to show you are going to be completely the same with or without the wizard. So first thing that you have to do is configure the policies. And here you have the options that I've been speaking before. So you define the policy name and you have the option to specify how often should it happen and how detailed should it be. Maybe you don't want to check all the file sharings. Maybe you think it's okay just to check at the subsite level. The next thing that you can do is you can say what to review. Do you just want to review memberships? Or maybe you just want to check if you have guest users inside that team. And are you interested in actual file sharing when you share specific files with somebody using those sharing links that you have? So maybe you want to review everything that's been shared with both internal and external users, or maybe you just want to review what's been shared externally. And once you create a new policy, you see that already have existing ones. What you have to do is apply those policies to different teams, groups, sites, or even OneDrives. So you see here that I have my sites and I have the apply policy. And I see that the demo planner group doesn't have a policy. So let's just apply one policy. I just want to users, basically group owners, to validate memberships of that group periodically. So I'm going to apply that policy. And what's also new, that you as an admin can also specify who should actually do the review. So once again, here you have your groups and you see, let's say, the group CloudX project, and you see different people on it. So you might be having some owners which are from IT and some are actual business people. Maybe you don't want the IT to do the review, or maybe you don't want the business owners to do the review. So here you can actually specify who should do the review, and you see the reviewing status column telling you who will actually, from the existing owners, be able to do the review and who is not going to be able to do the review. And if you find this, let's say, problematic because you want to find all the places where Adele is doing reviews, then you can simply choose to view this screen grouped by users. And in this way, you can even multi-select a user and just remove it from everything. If you have, let's say, some CEO and you should not send tasks to a CEO for some reason, then this is the way to do it. Okay, so what I'm going to do now I'm actually going to switch to my site owner. Notice that I'm no longer Eva, the global admin. Now I'm Cork in a different browser. And Cork gets an email. He has to do the review. Once he gets inside Syskit Point, he will have his tasks, and one of them is going to be perform the permissions review. And this first part is basically the same that you had before, but you also notice here that now you have the policy name. And before, what you had, let's say I want to do the review for the QA team. And it has the policy to review everything. So here you see how it looks like if you are reviewing everything. So you have a quick overview, then you have to start the visit. And here you see basically the memberships of that team. So you see the owners, the members, the guests, and you can even see what has changed, if anything, from the last review. And right here, you can choose to do different actions. And since we have the policy to check everything, we also have to check sharing of files. And here you can just, let's say, filter on different options. Do you want to see everything shared with people who are not member of this group? Do you just want to see what's being shared externally? Or do you just want to see if somebody is using actual anonymous links inside this team? And when you do the changes you want, basically all you have to do is complete the review. I'm just going to switch back to a different site, which has a different policy so you can notice the differences. The next thing that I'm going to show you, we're going to do, we have a rebranding Microsoft 365 group, and we're going to do a review for that. And notice that it has a different policy saying that you only have to review members. And in this case, the overview step is the same, but here you only have to review the members. There's no file sharing part. And maybe you notice here there are a lot of owners, which might be strange. Okay, these guys, maybe they should just be members. You can simply do a change here. And when you're happy with it, basically you see the changes you've made. You just complete the review. Sorry, it's confirmed, not complete. And you're done with that group. And the last example I wanted to show you is the remote work help. This is a team and it has a policy to review only external sharing. And once again, if I go in and start the review, the first overview step is the same, but notice here that I only have to review the guests inside the team, not the internal members. And when it comes to file sharing, it's the same. I only have to review what's been shared externally, either to specific people or using sharing links. And basically, you see here that you have a lot of different, let's say, flexibility to customize it the way you need it for your sites. And if you have different teams requiring different policies, now you can do it. Okay, back to the presentation. And basically, we are done when it comes to new features, but I also wanted to share what's coming later this year for Syskit Point. So we already started working on something that's pretty cool, and that's the automated governance rules. Basically, what we're going to do, we are going to have automated workflows enabling you to resolve if you have orphan teams, or maybe you want to define a minimum number of owners per your group or teams. Let's say if you set 2 owners is the minimum, and if that number jumps to 1, then we'll start the workflow where the single owner will have to decide who's going to be the second owner. And this is very useful because if you only have one owner and that person leaves the company, then you have orphan teams which nobody is taking care of. Other cool stuff that are coming is the automated expiration of external users. We're also going to do provisioning templates, allowing you to provision different teams, different sites with different approval workflows. And we are also working on adding support for sensitivity labels, which is out of the box features. We'll be able to give you more insights on actually if somebody is sharing highly sensitive files. So what we definitely want you guys to do, if you have any feedback for us, if you have any suggestions, please contact us. Here you see all the contact details. You can contact us either by phone or email. We'll definitely be glad to talk with you and make sure that based on your feedback, we definitely build something that's, let's say, solving your problems. And that's it from me. I'm handing it over back to Ivan for the Q&A.
Thank you, Matija, for this great presentation. I'm pretty sure our attendees are happy with what they saw today. And now it's time for the Q&A session. So let's check some of the questions we have here. So first question from Jennifer, for the alerts reports, can each Teams or SharePoint site owner see a report of their sites and any active alerts, or can only a Syskit admin see that information?
Yeah, actually, team owners can do it. So they can see their sites, they can see their alerts, and they can even configure their alerts on the sites they own. So they can completely do it without having IT to step in.
Yeah, thanks, Matija. The next one is from Lucian. Actually, those analytics reports, are they available to site owners focused on their specific sites versus being an overall adoption report across an entire tenant?
Yeah, so SharePoint reports, analytics reports are currently available to all the business owners. The dashboards are currently not available to business owners and content owners, but on those detail screens I've shown you, where you see the details of a single team or a single site, that is also available. And the dashboard support for team owners is also coming, so soon they'll be able to see all the data.
Yep, great. Next one is from Ted. Do I have to have the department field populated in the AAD?
I think this question is regarding the analytics and the licensing reports, and the answer is yeah. So we are pulling data from Azure AD to figure out which person belongs to which department.
Okay. The next question is from Louis. Is the per user license cost updated automatically?
The per user, the base unit price. So we actually use the prices that Microsoft is advertising. But if you have different license agreements, then you can just customize those unit license costs right inside Syskit Point. So if you have a different license price, you can change it. If you have a different, basically, if you're not using US dollars and if you're using a different currency, you can also change that. So we have you completely covered on that.
Great. Next one is also from Louis. So is it necessary to configure any security and compliance policy on the tenant before using Syskit security alerts?
No, so Syskit alerts are basically completely separated from them. So you don't have to configure anything. You just have to have Syskit Point.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. A few more questions, Matija. I hope you are bearing there.
Yeah, I am. No worries.
Does any Syskit admin have to identify who will do the access review, or can a site owner define who will do the review programmatically?
So by default, all the site owners and team owners will do the review. But the Syskit Point admin can change that if he wants to. But by default, we figure out automatically who's the site owner, who's the team owner, and all of that happens automatically. You don't have to manually specify who's the owner of each team.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Also a question from Louis. Is this product on-premise or SaaS?
Yeah, so currently you can deploy it to your own Azure cloud. So basically all the data and all the passwords and everything that we collect resides in your own data storage. So you can host it in cloud, but the data stays with you.
Thank you, Matija. A few more. So from Lucian, are access reviews available with all options for OneDrives like it's for Teams and SharePoint?
Yeah, basically for OneDrives, you cannot validate group members because they don't have a connected group, but all the other options, saying how deep you want to go, or do you just want to validate external sharing, yeah, those will work for the OneDrives.
Thank you. The next one is also from Lucian. So sensitivity labels support including classification labels.
Yeah, I think I've mentioned that's on the roadmap, and that's definitely coming. So you'll be able to see if an entire site has a classification and sensitivity label or a single file, and you'll be able to basically filter out reports and just look who has access to sensitive files or any other criteria, any other label you might be using.
Yeah. Okay. And one more from Andrew. So is there any training for data collaborators, for reviewers and audits?
Yeah, so what we have basically each customer has a customer success manager, and we can organize trainings and materials that we have, allowing you basically to educate your users and not just give them point and hope everything turns out okay. So we'll definitely help you on that road to success.
Yeah, definitely, Mattia. And one last one from Andrew. So Andrew says that he has a version 18.0.1 and he's missing several features demonstrated today in the reports. So is he missing something?
So when it comes to analytics and adoption, this has to be installed separately. So please, if you want to try it out, just contact us and we'll help you set it up in your environment.
Yeah, definitely. So with this question, I think we can slowly wrap up this session. Once again, thank you all for joining. As mentioned, everyone who's registered for this event will receive a recording of the session within a few days. And if you have any further questions about Syskit Point or any other products, if you just want to talk about it some more, please reach out to us using sales@syskit.com email. It was a pleasure having you all here, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.